Hi, and welcome back to Cape Cod Like a Local. Today we're going to talk about 7 different factors that affect the economy and the housing market, and just try to touch on each one a little bit so help you to understand what's driving the market and to kind of filter through all the background noise. And the news we're constantly getting, oh, the interest rates are doing this or they're doing that. And generally the news is made really geared to inflame you and freak you out a little bit. So we're just going to try to bring some normalcy to it just by explaining a few of the things that go into measuring the economy and the housing market. So number one is appreciation. Appreciation is simply the change in a home's value from month to month or year to year. It could be either measured as an absolute or as a percentage of the home's value. Appreciation matters because over time, it's like a forced savings account for homeowners. And study after study has shown over the years that the average homeowner's net worth is about 35 times that of the average renter. So appreciation matters. Over the long term, the average appreciation is about 4% per year. And when it gets to be much more than that, it's not sustainable. And you're going to see, like we have in recent years, a correction. And when the appreciation is too low, you end up with challenges like people being underwater and having to sell via short sale or just being foreclosed on. So right around that 4% mark is the sweet spot for appreciation. The next factor is the gross domestic product. The gross domestic product is basically a measure of everything produced in the United States, everything we've spent money on, less some spending on imports. The goal of GDP is to basically see if we are making more or less stuff than we did the previous year. Government investments and consumer spending are two heavy factors in the GDP. Economists watch the GDP as a basic measure of the economy's health. 2% GDP is kind of the goal. When you see something 4 to 5%, especially in lockstep with high unemployment, you start to see inflation rearing its ugly head, which means the economy could be overheating, at which point the government steps in and starts raising rates to kind of cool it off a bit. The definition of a recession is actually 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP. And the problem is they're measuring that as a hindsight measurement. So by the time the government announces that we're in a recession, we've already known it for a while because we're feeling it. The next factor is the federal funds rate or the Fed rate. The Fed rate is just the rate that government sets for lending and borrowing between commercial banks. So it basically sets the cost of money for businesses that want to invest and expand. And after the Great Recession, the Feds dropped the rate below 1% for almost a decade, and to kind of help prop up the economy. And recently they've been cranking it back up again to cool things off. The problem is people see the rates we have now, 6 to 7%, and start thinking we have high rates, when traditionally, if you average out the rates over the past several decades, that would be kind of an average rate. So it's not that we have high rates now, it's that we had unusually low rates for the last decade. Unfortunately, when the Feds are playing that game of raising the rates and lowering the rates to prop up or slow down the economy, it's not a precise thing. It's not a perfect game. So many times they overshoot the mark and we feel the pinch. Number 4 is inflation. We use the consumer price index to track inflation. That comes in kind of 2 flavors. One is the consumer price index, which means the spending on the things. It's a survey of the spending on all the things we would normally use. The core CPI really backs out fuel and food, which we absolutely have to buy. And those prices can be more volatile than other prices. What we generally see is prices can go up very quickly, but then they tend to come down a little more slowly. And that's something that's often referred to as sticky pricing. Prices are sticking rather than traveling back down as they should. And again, food and fuel prices tend to be more volatile. That's because we all have to use them. We have to eat, and most people have to use fuel to get back and forth to work to earn their living. And when those prices go up, because we have to use them, we tend to feel it a lot more. It tends to hurt the average consumer. And the government target for inflation is around 2%. They consider that a healthy economy. But it goes up to 3 to 4%. That becomes a problem, and the natives get restless, so to speak, and we start to grab the pitchforks, and we're ready to revolt against the government. So as far as housing goes, number 5 is inventory. What we know is that the inventory measures the number of months it would take to sell everything that's on the market, providing nothing else came onto the market. So to sell the current inventory, we measure that in a number of months. A balanced market is 4 to 6 months. When the inventory falls below 4 months, we tend to find ourselves in a seller's market, meaning that the sellers have an advantage because you have less choices when you're buying. So the sellers, that can tend to tick the prices up a bit. Anything over 6 months is considered a buyer's market because they have a lot of options, and they can be fussier, and they can negotiate a lot harder, which would drive the prices down. Number 6 is the mortgage interest rates. What will it cost you to borrow the money to buy the home? Right now we're seeing rates in the 6 to 7% range, and people are, again, we'll go back to, they're thinking it's a high rate. It's really not. It's more of an average rate over time. It's just that the government had propped up the economy with very, very low rates, and so that helped, but it also drove the prices up. So right now, homeowners can expect to pay more for the home, and they're feeling that pinch when the rates have gone back up to 6 to 7% from, say, 2.5%, 3%. A good rule of thumb when it comes to mortgages is for every 1% the rate goes up or down, you could expect your payment to rise or fall by about 10%. And number 7 is unemployment. The unemployment rate is a measure of how many people are unemployed and actively looking for jobs. The government likes to see that around 4 to 6%. If it drops below that, it means that everybody's working, and of course, when they're working, they're spending more money, and inflation is going to become a problem. When it gets above that, it starts to affect spending. There are fewer people spending. That it starts to affect that GDP, and the government will need to make an adjustment there as well. So unemployment's too high, not a good thing, because there aren't enough people working and earning money to spend money to keep the economy going. And when unemployment is too low, everybody's spending money, and they're driving the inflationary rate up. So that's it. I hope it was helpful. The next time you're watching the news, I think that having a little bit more information when they start talking about rising rates or falling rates or home prices. Again, news reports what sells. Generally, that's a little inflammatory or frightening for a lot of people. And I think understanding some of the things that go into that will just help to keep people calm, and also to understand what's happening, so you can make the best possible decision for your family when it comes time to buy or sell. That's it for now, and we'll see you next week.